On my birthday, Aiden made an excuse that there was an urgent matter at the company and left me alone in the hospital with a high fever that wouldn't go down. However, in the evening, his first love posted a photo of the two of them with a huge cake. The caption read, "The one who truly loves you will come to celebrate your birthday for you no matter how important the matter is." Nobody liked the post because everyone knew that she posted it specifically for me, Aiden's official girlfriend. I didn't cry or make a fuss. I just commented, "Why don't I move the Civil Affairs Bureau here so that you two can get married on the spot?" When Aiden left me alone in the hospital, I had a high fever of 39 degrees. I didn't make a noise or complain. I waited in the hospital for him to finish working overtime and celebrate my birthday with me. I waited the whole night, but all I got was Lunaire's WeChat moments. Aiden was standing beside Lunaire, and there was a 3-layered big cake between them. The one who truly loves you will come to celebrate your birthday for you no matter how important the matter is. I immediately called him and had a quarrel with him. Stop making a fuss. Lunaire had an illness attack and her emotions were unstable. She needed me to accompany her. I just regard her as my sister. Don't be so dirty-minded, okay? He hung up on me and didn't contact me for several days. He told me that there was an urgent matter at the company and he needed to go back to deal with it. He said he would come to celebrate my birthday with me after he finished dealing with it. I had been having a high fever for several days and it just wouldn't go away. But my mind was surprisingly clear. I began to reflect on this relationship and whether it was really necessary to continue it. This wasn't the first time we had quarreled because of Lunaire. Every time, Aiden would use the same words to shut me up. I just regard her as my sister. Don't think too much. Every time, I was the one who took the initiative to give Aiden a way out, but these days I didn't miss him at all. My heart was calm and I slept unusually soundly. Perhaps because I didn't show any sign of making up, Aiden took the initiative to call me for the first time. "I'll pick you up from the hospital this afternoon. Don't bother. I can take a taxi home by myself." This was the first time Aiden gave me a chance to make up, but I didn't take it. However, in the evening, his first love posted a photo of the two of them with a huge cake. The caption read, "The one who truly loves you will come to celebrate your birthday." I didn't call him to ask where he was as usual, nor did I urge him to come back. I cooked something to eat by myself, ate and drank my fill, took a bath and went to bed. With no one to worry about and no troubles, I felt very comfortable and had a good sleep. Early in the morning, I heard the sound of the password lock. Aiden pushed open my door and said, "Serafina?" "Yes, you're back." I didn't rush towards him joyfully as usual but just turned over and continued to sleep. He was still standing at the door. Lunaire had another illness attack yesterday. I was afraid something would happen to her, so I was delayed for a while. "I'm sorry." "Yet," I said in a flat tone. Aiden explained, "I know you're angry, but Lunaire needs someone to be with her." I smiled and took a look at him. "What's there to be angry about? It's normal for an older brother to take care of his younger sister, isn't it?" Aiden was silent for a while. "Serafina, I know I've been neglecting you during this period. Go back to sleep. I also need to catch up on my sleep." I interrupted him and continued to sleep. Aiden somehow felt a bit irritable. I had never been so cold to him before. When I woke up, I saw a table full of dishes. Aiden had cooked them himself. I was a bit surprised. In the past, I always pestered Aiden to cook a meal for me by himself, and he would always wave his hand impatiently. "Serafina, do you have to eat the food I cook? You're not a child anymore. Why can't you cook by yourself?" I'm so tired from work every day. However, even when he was more tired from work, he could still go to Lunaire's home to cook a big table of dishes as soon as she called. So it wasn't that he was too tired from work. He just didn't want to cook for me. "Serafina, I've cooked your favorite dishes. Go and wash up quickly." "Yeah, thank you for your hard work." After I washed up, Aiden served me rice and soup himself. This was a treatment I had never had before. Aiden put a piece of eggplant in my bowl. "Serafina, this is your favorite eggplant. Eat more." I smiled and put the eggplant back into his bowl. "I've never liked eggplant. It should be Lunaire who likes it. You just remembered it wrong." But you used to. Aiden was stunned and looked at me. I peeled the shrimps and started eating by myself. Every time I went out to eat with Aiden, he would definitely order a plate of eggplant. But eggplant wasn't my favorite. It was just that because he put it in my bowl, I would pretend to like it and finish the whole plate. A phone call came in. Aiden stood up nervously. Serafina, I'm afraid I can't accompany you for dinner. Lunaire has another illness attack. Go ahead. It doesn't matter. She's more important. I buried myself in eating and didn't have time to look at the expression on his face. Every time it was time to eat, Lunaire would use the same trick to trick Aiden into going to her. As smart as Aiden was, he was always willing to play along. After eating and drinking my fill, I put the leftovers in the food containers and put them in the fridge. After taking a few days of sick leave, I went back to work at the company under Violet's repeated urgings. Violet came to me with a transfer order. Serafina, don't you really plan to go to the Beijing headquarters for development? There are more resources there than here. I had refused Violet many times before. Beijing is too far from home. I'll miss my home. Actually, I was afraid of leaving Aiden. I often imagined that if I went to develop in Beijing and without me, would Aiden be very sad? But now when I think about it, probably not. I had waited for so many years just to marry Aiden and have a small family of our own. But Aiden had never mentioned getting married to me. He always found an excuse to put it off. Serafina, I'm not stable yet. When I'm stable, I'll go to your family to propose marriage. Violet, I've thought it through. I want to go to Beijing. Violet was a bit surprised. After all, I had refused her so many times. How could I be willing to leave Aiden? I smiled and shook my head. I've thought it through and decided to broaden my horizons. Opal called me and asked me to go out drinking with her. I agreed. Since I got together with Aiden, I hadn't contacted my friends for a long time. Opal put her arm around my shoulder. That's right. You should relax yourself once in a while. I drank with Opal until midnight and finally just stayed overnight at her home. When I woke up in the morning, there were more than 10 missed calls and messages from Aiden on my phone. I called back. Aiden said with a bit of anger, Serafina, where have you been? I've been calling you all night. You've never stayed out all night before. I yawned and acted as if nothing had happened. I went out drinking with Opal last night and fell asleep at her home because it was too late. Serafina, what's your attitude? I was worried all night. Do you know that? I could feel Aiden's anger even through the screen. In the past, when he went out for social engagements and got drunk and ended up at Lunaire's home, I waited for him all night, made countless calls and sent countless messages. Finally, all I got was his casual reply, why are you so excited? It's just one night without going home. I stretched myself. Aiden, why are you so excited? It's just that I went out drinking and didn't go home all night. All right. I'll come back first. Aiden's tone softened. Serafina, I'll pick you up and we'll go out for dinner together. Okay. I waited downstairs at Opal's home for a long time. Taxis passed by one after another. Miss, do you want to take a taxi? I shook my head. No, someone is coming to pick me up. It was only a dozen minutes from my home to Opal's home downstairs, but I waited for more than half an hour before I saw Aiden's car. There was a familiar figure sitting in the passenger seat. The car window was rolled down and Lunaire poked her head out halfway. Sister Serafina, I'm sitting in the front. You don't mind, do you? I directly sat in the back seat. Of course not. Lunaire's home had a power outage. I thought since it's the same to have dinner with 3 people, I just brought her along. Aiden took a look at me through the rearview mirror. I shrugged indifferently. It doesn't matter. The more the merrier. Aiden frowned slightly. He felt that he couldn't understand me more and more. In the past, if Lunaire was brought along, I would definitely lose my temper, but this time I didn't make a fuss and didn't even care that Lunaire was sitting in the passenger seat. Aiden peeled several shrimps and put them in Lunaire's bowl. Lunaire picked up a few and put them in my bowl. Sister Serafina, don't be angry. Aiden is just like this. He always thinks of me first. I smiled slightly. Why would I be angry? How good is the relationship between you two as brother and sister? Seeing this, Aiden awkwardly peeled a few shrimps and put them in my bowl too. But I didn't eat them. The waiter came in with the last dish and looked at Lunayer enviously. Wow, miss, you're so lucky. Your boyfriend spoils you so much. Aiden frowned with a bit of displeasure, while Lunayer was quite pleased. Sister Serafina, you won't be angry, will you? Lunayer was obviously doing it on purpose, deliberately trying to make me angry and make me go crazy. But I wouldn't. Why should I be angry? You two do look quite a match standing together. I smiled brightly, as if it had nothing to do with me and just focused on eating. Come to think of it, it's a pity. If I hadn't been ill, maybe Aiden and I would have. Lunayer showed a regretful expression. Aiden interrupted her. Lunayer, don't talk nonsense. Seeing Aiden's cold face and him throwing down his chopsticks, Lunayer immediately showed a pitiful expression. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come to disturb you. I'll leave. She covered her face and cried. Aiden seemed to think that his tone was a bit too harsh. He looked at me with embarrassment. Hurry up and follow her to see if she's okay. I took the initiative to give him a way out. Aiden immediately got up and left a sentence. I'll go and have a look. I'll come to send you home later. Yeah, thank you for your hard work. I continued to eat. It would be a pity not to eat such a big table of dishes. After eating and drinking my fill, I took a taxi home contentedly because I knew Aiden wouldn't come back. As soon as I got home, Aiden called. Serafina, where have you been? I'm back. I said in a flat tone. Didn't I say I'd come to pick you up and take you home? There was a hint of resentment in Aiden's tone. I thought you wouldn't come, so I took a taxi home by myself. Anyway, I had nothing to do. In the past, when I asked Aiden to pick me up and take me home, he would always find all kinds of excuses to refuse. Why can't you go home by yourself? Anyway, I'm free now. What's wrong with going back by myself? Don't you see that I'm so busy? There was no sound from Aiden on the other end of the phone. I simply hung up the phone and leisurely put on a facial mask. As I expected, Aiden didn't come back that night either. However, I still slept soundly. Surprisingly, when I got up, Aiden had already prepared breakfast. You're up? Come and have breakfast quickly. It was really rare for Aiden to cook so frequently. I was drinking porridge while Aiden looked at me complicatedly. Serafina, do you know what time I came back last night? I shook my head. I don't know. What's the matter? In the past, I would call Aiden whenever it was past 10 o'clock and ask him when he would come back. But recently, I didn't make a single call and I didn't even care what time he came back. It was as if I had become a different person. Even if he smoked a whole pack of cigarettes at home, I just said casually, smoking is bad for your health. Sometimes I just turned a blind eye to it. Aiden just felt uncomfortable all over, as if something was missing. Serafina, we're all adults. If you have something to say, just say it. Don't be like this. In the end, Aiden couldn't help but say it. What could I have to say? I'm full. I'm going to work. After finishing the last mouthful, I stood up and was about to leave. I'll take you to work, Serafina. It was the first time that Aiden offered to take me to work. In the past, when I asked him to take me to work, he always tried every means to refuse. How can you be the same as Lunayer? Lunayer has health problems, so I need to pick her up and send her to work. I'm already very tired. Can't you be more obedient? Okay, thank you. Serafina, why have you suddenly become? Aiden had a complicated look on his face. I had been very strange these days. I had become very polite and more sensible, but it made him feel a sense of uncertainty. I took the initiative to sit in the back seat. Aiden had already opened the door of the passenger seat. He stared at me in a daze. Serafina, why are you sitting in the back? I smiled. What's the difference? In the past, Aiden wouldn't let me sit in the passenger seat. I quarreled with him and made a fuss. Why can Lunayer sit there? I'm your girlfriend after all. Aiden wearily perfunctorily replied. Do you have to argue with Lunayer, a patient, about this? Can't you be more sensible? When we arrived downstairs at the company, Aiden stopped me. Serafina, there will be a company dinner tomorrow. You can bring your family members. Well, that's nice. I stretched myself and looked at him indifferently. You can bring your family members, Serafina. Aiden frowned as he looked at me. You can go with me. I would never let go of such an opportunity before and was eager to let everyone know that I was Aiden's girlfriend. Aiden had never taken me to these activities before and he seldom introduced me as his girlfriend in front of others. Okay. I nodded and then went back to the company. Violet handed me the transfer order notice. Are you really sure about this? Yes, I'm sure. I'm going to Beijing. I signed it without hesitation. I haven't told Aiden about this until now, but there's no need to tell him either. As soon as I got into Aiden's car, I saw Lunaier. Sister Serafina, you won't mind, right? I pestered Aiden to take me with him. I've never participated in these before. Lunaier held Aiden's arm with one hand, and Aiden didn't let go of her hand either, as if I was the outsider. It's okay. Otherwise, you two can go. I still have some documents to deal with. I smiled faintly. Aiden frowned. Serafina, you've already agreed. Now you're not going, isn't Lunaier going with you? It's okay for you two to go. Lunaier is your sister and can be regarded as your family member. I glanced at the time. Just drop me off at the entrance of the company. Aiden drove irritably to downstairs of the company, and I walked into the company without looking back. Aiden, is Sister Serafina angry? Lunaier leaned on Aiden's shoulder. Aiden said angrily, whatever. I was leaning on the sofa when a message from a special follow popped up on my phone. Lunaier posted a WeChat moments. In it, she was leaning on Aiden's shoulder. Care is probably that no matter when, he is willing to take me with him. Lunaier liked to post on moments. I set her as a special follow just to see every move between her and Aiden. Now I don't think it's necessary anymore and casually cancelled the special follow. Lunaier posted this moments just to show it to me. No one liked it. Everyone wanted to see the attitude of me, the real girlfriend. I didn't care. Anyway, it wouldn't be long before I wasn't his girlfriend anymore. Sister Serafina, Aiden got drunk and fell asleep at my place. Lunaier called me using Aiden's phone. Okay, then please take care of him. Lunaier made this call just to show off to me. Lunaier and Aiden were childhood sweethearts. Nominally, she was Aiden's first love. Later, because she got sick, Aiden's mother didn't allow them to be together, so she became Aiden's first love. I began to wonder if Aiden's original intention of being with me was to perfunctorily deal with his mother. I took a shower, watched a movie, and then fell asleep, but in the middle of the night, I received a call from Aiden. Serafina, I'm drunk. I know. Lunaier will take good care of you. Seeing that there was no one talking on the other end of the phone, I hung up, covered myself with the quilt, and continued to sleep. In the past, whenever I received a call from Aiden saying that he was drunk, no matter how late it was, I would immediately go to pick him up and take him home. I even forbade him to drink, but he impatiently told his friends, she's really annoying. She likes to interfere in everything and doesn't give me any freedom at all. Such a relationship is really suffocating. Unlike Lunaier, who will accompany me to have fun and never restrict me from doing this or that. In order to go to Beijing, I have to finish all the work at hand and then hand it over. I've been staying in the company for several days in a row, so busy that I'm dizzy every day. Opal felt sorry for me and dragged me to drink together. Take a rest. You'll be exhausted if you work like this. I smiled and also decided to relax. Seriously, are you willing to go to Beijing? Are you willing to leave Aiden? In the past, I definitely wouldn't have been willing. My dream was to marry Aiden, have a baby, and live a stable life. Does Aiden know? I shook my head. No, he doesn't. Okay, let's not talk so much. Let's drink until we're drunk. Having a great time, Opal ordered a few male models and we played until late at night. Aiden called. Where are you? Why haven't you come back yet? I tried hard to sober up a little. I'm at Opal's place. What's the matter? Aiden seemed to be suppressing something. Do you know what day it is today? I thought hard for a while but couldn't figure out what day it was. What day is it? It's our 3rd anniversary. I've been waiting for you at home all night. Don't you remember? In the past, I always took the initiative to prepare for the anniversary. I remembered every festival. On last year's anniversary, I carefully decorated the house, prepared a lot of things, and waited for Aiden at home all night. I called him, but Linnaeur's voice came from the other end first. Sister Serafina is calling you again, Aiden. Aiden impatiently took the phone. What's the matter? I'm out of town now. But why did he take Lunaire with him if he was out of town? Today is our anniversary. Have you forgotten? Aiden clicked his tongue. It's just an anniversary. What's the difference between celebrating it and not celebrating it? We can make it up next year at worst. I looked at the table full of dishes disappointedly. But I've prepared the dishes you like and am waiting for you to come back. How annoying. I won't talk anymore. You can eat by yourself. In the end, I ate the whole table of dishes by myself. I turned over indifferently. It's just an anniversary. It's the same whenever we make it up. I'm so sleepy. Let's talk about it tomorrow if there's anything. I hung up the phone and had a comfortable sleep. When I woke up, I found that Aiden had sent me a long list of WeChat messages. I was too lazy to reply to them one by one, so I simply didn't reply at all. After leaving Opal's place, I went to work. Aiden was waiting for me downstairs with breakfast. Serafina, what's wrong with you recently? A feeling of uneasiness rose in Aiden's heart. He always felt that I was quietly distancing myself from him. I shook my head, looking as if nothing had happened. Nothing. I've been eating and sleeping well recently. I've never been so comfortable. In the past, I had a lot of things to worry about. I had to keep an eye on every move of Aiden and Lunaire every day. I also had to care about whether he stayed up late at night, whether he had breakfast, whether he smoked, and there were so many trifles every day that I was exhausted. Serafina, I'll pick you up after work tonight. Let's go to see my parents together. Aiden took my hand, but I quietly pulled it away. Why are we going to see your parents? I had mentioned going to see Aiden's parents before. But he always used the excuse of not wanting to disturb the two old people, to put me off. Serafina, I know that I've neglected you during this period. I think our marriage should be put on the agenda. Let's get married. I was stunned for a moment and then said calmly, you arrange it. I still have things to do. Aiden felt a bit disappointed. I should have been happy instead of being so calm. He stood there thinking for a long time until the last cigarette burned out before he left. I deliberately changed into a relatively decent set of clothes and waited for Aiden at the door for a long time. I didn't see his figure for a long time and no one replied even when I called or sent messages. I subconsciously clicked on Lunaire's WeChat moments. There was the latest post she made today. Aiden behind her was carrying big and small bags, and she was feeding him milk tea with her own hands. Even after so many years, as long as I say I'm bored, he will accompany me to buy this and that. I immediately gave it a like. No wonder Aiden didn't come. It turned out that he went shopping with Lunaire. I took a taxi directly home, cooked some dishes casually, and was about to have dinner when I heard the sound of the combination lock. Aiden came back, and Lunaire was following behind him. Sister Serafina, Aiden accompanied me to go shopping today. So you couldn't go back to see Uncle and Auntie. Are you angry with me? Lunaire held Aiden's arm and looked at me provocatively. Aiden felt guilty and let go of Lunaire's arm. Serafina, I'm sorry. I'll take you to see my parents tomorrow. We'll see. Do you want to eat some? I cooked it casually. I knew that as long as Lunaire was there, I wouldn't be able to see Aiden's parents. But it didn't matter. I didn't care anymore. Sister Serafina, this dish is a bit too salty. It makes my heart feel a bit flustered. Lunaire covered her heart, making people want to pity her. I'll cook you a bowl of noodles. Aiden stood up and walked into the kitchen. Sister Serafina, do you think this ring is nice? Aiden accompanied me to choose it. He said this ring suits me. It's a pity that he couldn't wear the same one as me. Sister Serafina, don't misunderstand, okay? I glanced at the ring in her hand and smiled slightly. Don't worry. There will always be a chance for him to wear the same one as you. Aiden came out with a bowl of noodles, and Lunair kept praising his cooking skills. In the past, when I had my period, Aiden would always cook such a bowl of noodles for me and then comfort me until I fell asleep. Without Aiden, I wouldn't know what to do. Aiden nudged Lunair with his elbow, signaling her to stop talking. Whenever I was on my period, Aiden would just say perfunctorily, "Drink more hot water. Everyone gets stomachaches. Don't be so fussy." It turned out that he could also take meticulous and gentle care of a girl. It's just that that girl wasn't me. After having enough to eat and drink, I stood up and said, "You guys continue eating. I'm going to take a rest." Gujian followed me into the room and said, "Serafina, I'm sorry." I smiled blandly and said, "It's nothing. We can just go there next time. There will be opportunities anyway. Serafina, don't worry. I will definitely marry you. By then, we'll hold Aiden, my heart hurts so much. Come and check it for me quickly." Lunair shouted in alarm and Aiden rushed out before he could finish his sentence. "Are you okay? I'll take you home." Aiden drove Lunair home, and I was left alone in the house, suffering from period pain all day. I lay on the bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. I got up and wanted to make a cup of brown sugar water. Just then, Aiden came back. Seeing that I was pale, he immediately helped me sit down. "If your stomach is uncomfortable, drink some hot water." Looking at the steaming cup of water, I just felt it was ironic. Sure enough, Lunair was the most important person in his heart. "Thank you." Aiden felt a bit uncomfortable and said, "Serafina, why do we need to say thank you between us?" I smiled, drank the hot water, and then went into the room to sleep. "Serafina, it's my birthday in 2 days. Let's cook some dishes at home to celebrate, okay?" "As you like." I covered myself with the quilt, turned over, and with my back to him, said, "Please close the door for me when you leave." "Thank you." Aiden clutched his chest, feeling emptier and emptier inside, and the feeling of being on tenterhooks grew stronger. On Aiden's birthday, I specifically went to pick out a birthday gift for him. I chose a men's ring. This ring was a pair with the one on Lunair's hand. Presumably, he would really like this gift. Just consider it as the last birthday gift I give him before I leave. After all, it was his birthday. Don't be so cruel for now. Wait until his birthday is over, and then tell him that I'm leaving." Aiden drove to pick me up. He had bought a lot of groceries and said, "Let's go home and cook, and then have a nice meal." Seeing that I was about to sit in the back seat again, he stopped me and said, "Sit in the front." I didn't refuse and sat directly in the front seat. After all, it was his birthday. There was no reason for him to be the one cooking. He was responsible for washing the vegetables, and I would do the cooking. During my free time, I ordered a cake. We sat facing each other at the dining table. I took out the ring I just bought today and said, "Aiden, happy birthday." Aiden's eyes lit up, but when I opened the red velvet box, he froze. I blinked my eyes and said, "What's wrong? Don't you like it?" "I saw that you had it saved in your phone, so I bought it." Because Lunair wanted to wear the same style as him, he had saved it. Plus, I was about to leave. I thought I'd be considerate and help them out. Why wear it secretly? It would be better to do it openly. Aiden shook his head and said, "Don't you know that this is a pair with the one on Lunair's hand?" I picked up a shrimp and put it in my mouth and said, "I know, but you like it. But I want to wear it with you, Serafina. You're my girlfriend." Aiden reached out to touch my hand, but I dodged it. I put down my chopsticks and looked at him and said, "Aiden, we're all adults. There's no need to make some things so clear. As long as we all know it in our hearts, that's enough." Aiden was just about to say something when a phone call came in. "Aiden, there's a power outage at home. I'm so scared." Aiden frowned and said impatiently, "You can light a candle. Don't you have any friends? Today is my birthday. I just want to have a nice birthday with Serafina. Stop making trouble." "Aiden, I'm sorry, but I'm really scared. Could you come to me? My heart feels so uncomfortable." Lunair's voice was choked with sobs. Aiden said calmly, I'll call an ambulance for you. If you're sick, go see a doctor. I'm not a doctor and can't cure diseases. I looked at Aiden. It turned out that he had always known that Lunaire was acting, but he was still willing to believe her. Serafina? I interrupted him and said, okay, don't say anything else. Today is your birthday. Let's not talk about such unpleasant topics. Aiden felt so choked up inside that he was absent-minded even when cutting the cake. The cream in his mouth tasted a bit bitter. Early in the morning, before going to work, Aiden had already cooked breakfast. Hurry up and eat. After that, I'll take you to work. Don't bother. I can go by myself. I didn't want to have more contact with Aiden. Aiden seemed not to have heard me and said, hurry up and eat. I'll take you there. When he dropped me off downstairs at the company, I was about to leave when Aiden called me back. Serafina, let me pick you up tonight and we'll go to dinner together. I made up an excuse to put him off. Tonight, I might not be free. I'm going to meet clients with Violet. Okay. I left without looking back. Meeting clients was just an excuse. The truth was that I didn't want to see him. I stayed at the company all day. I stretched myself and thought about taking a taxi home. As soon as I went downstairs, I saw Aiden's car parked there. Serafina. I was a bit surprised. Why was he here? I'll take you home. On the way home, Aiden kept looking at me and his uneasiness grew even stronger. He had waited downstairs all day but he didn't see me leave the company, so I didn't go to meet clients. I just didn't want to go to dinner with him. Serafina, tomorrow I'll take you to meet my parents. They said they want to see you. I leaned against the window and said indifferently. Since his parents wanted to see me, I should give them this face. Anyway, there were only a few days left. As soon as I got home, I took a shower and went to bed without saying a word to Aiden. Aiden sat by my bed and said, Serafina, I know you're very disappointed in me now, but I hope you can give me some time. I'll change slowly. Let's not break up easily, okay? I closed my eyes and didn't move without answering him. After a while, he went back to his own room. I opened my eyes and turned over. Time can indeed change a person, but for those who have been hurt, it's not so easy to recover. In the past, Aiden's kindness would have moved me to tears and then I wouldn't have been angry with him anymore. But this time it was different. Whenever I saw him and Lunaire, instead of feeling a heart-wrenching pain, I felt a sense of calm and comfort, probably because I knew that I didn't love him anymore, so I didn't have so many feelings for him. Aiden's parents knew that I was coming and prepared a big table of dishes. On the way there, I pretended to be asleep to avoid talking. When we arrived, he woke me up. Aiden's parents were waiting at the door. Serafina, you're here. This naughty boy. We asked him to bring you here several times, but he always said he was busy with work. Aiden's mother held my hand and said a lot of things. Aiden sat beside me. Aiden's mother kept putting food in my bowl and Aiden's father chatted with us. Serafina, when do you and Aiden plan to get married? Both his mother and I have been waiting for a long time. We're just waiting for you to get married and have children so that we can hold our grandchildren. Looking at the expectant looks of Aiden's father and mother, I froze in embarrassment. Before my father passed away, he had also been urging me to marry Aiden, but until he passed away, his wish hadn't been fulfilled. I don't know if my father's spirit in heaven would be angry at my decision. Aiden then held my hand and said, Mom, Dad, we plan to get engaged next month. I was stunned and pulled my hand back. Aiden's mother happily said, good, 3 times in a row and then took off the jade bracelet on her hand. Serafina, this was passed down to me by my mother-in-law back then. Now I'm passing it on to you. Aiden smiled and said, now, you're our family's prospective daughter-in-law. Before I could say anything, Aiden's mother directly put it on my wrist. After graduating from university, suddenly someone proposed having a class reunion. Thinking that I was about to leave soon, I didn't refuse and went there too. Aiden and I were in the same department and we went to the reunion together. As soon as we entered, a figure rushed over and hugged Aiden's arm. Aiden. Lunaire held on to Aiden as if she were the real girlfriend. Most of the people here were friends and knew the relationship between Aiden and me. They all looked at me awkwardly. But I greeted others calmly as if I didn't care about all this at all. Aiden frowned and pushed Lunayr away, saying, "Stop making trouble." At the dinner table, someone asked, "Aiden, when are you two getting married?" "We're waiting for your wedding candies." Aiden smiled and said, "Next month we'll get engaged." I lowered my head and ate my meal. Lunayr then held Aiden's hand and said, "Aiden, I want to eat shrimp. Peel one for me, please." "Don't you have hands?" Although Aiden said that, he still peeled one for her. "By the way, Serafina, I heard that you're going to be transferred to Beijing next week." I nodded and said, "Yes. I'm changing my working environment." Aiden, who was peeling the shrimp, froze. He turned his head to look at me in disbelief. After the class reunion, Aiden sent Lunayr away. When we got to the door of our house, he suddenly stopped and asked me, "When did you decide to go to Beijing? Why didn't you tell me?" I opened the window to let in some air and said, "I decided last month. Actually, it doesn't matter whether I tell you or not." "Aiden, none of us are fools. Let's break up." "Actually, I've wanted to say these words for a long time." Aiden held my hand and his eyes gradually turned red. "Serafina, I know I was wrong before. Please give me one more chance. I'll stay away from any woman. I beg you, don't leave me, okay?" Then he took out his phone and said, "Serafina, look. I'll delete all of Lunair's contact information right away. Please don't be angry anymore, okay?" Aiden deleted them with red eyes and his tears fell on the screen. "Look, I've deleted them all. Please give me one more chance, okay?" I sighed and said, "Aiden, why bother? This is the best choice for both of us. Serafina, can't you really give me one more chance? I won't get close to Lunayr anymore." "Really, I swear." Looking at the 3 fingers he raised, I reached out and put them down for him. "Aiden, when some things pile up for too long, there's no room for retention." "Look, you knew that Lunayr was acting every time, but you were still willing to play along. Why? Because you have her in your heart. So, let's part on good terms. This is the best arrangement for both of us. By the way, please say sorry to Uncle and Auntie for me and return this for me." I took off the jade bracelet on my wrist and gently placed it in his palm. "Starting from today, let's each strive to live our lives and live the lives we want." Aiden held my hand, trembling all over. "No." I pulled his hand away from mine and said, "Aiden, I wish you happiness." The moment I opened the car door and got out, a sense of relief washed over me. I took a deep breath. It's so nice. My own good days are coming soon. The end. For the sake of his first love's perfect winning record, my husband stole my judicial materials, causing me to suffer a crushing defeat in the most important lawsuit of my life. He threw a card at me without any sense of guilt. One top female lawyer is enough. There can't be any defeats in Irene's career. So, Elodie, quit the legal profession. I'll support you from now on. Under his instigation, I was blacklisted by the whole industry. When I appeared in court again, I took on a divorce case. And I was both the lawyer and the plaintiff in this case. Standing in the courtroom again, I couldn't help but feel a bit dazed. Irene, dressed in a capable professional suit, stood opposite me and said with disdain, "Elodie, aren't you going to hire a lawyer? You're still too confident in yourself. If I could make you lose once, I can make you lose a second time. You've really gone to great lengths just to get Ethan's attention." Ethan stood beside her with a dark face, just looking at me gloomily without saying a word. Compared to the large group of people on their side, it was really lonely for me to take my seat alone. I sorted out my materials and smiled at her casually. "Irene, should I remind you in front of so many people how you won last time?" Her arrogance froze instantly. I ignored her and prepared to close my eyes and rest, waiting for the presiding judge to arrive. Since I entered the profession, I had always maintained the habit of arriving at the courtroom early, closing my eyes, and immersing myself in simulating the trial. Once again, smelling the unique wooden fragrance of the courtroom desks and chairs, an infinite sense of peace welled up in my heart. However, my meditation was rudely interrupted by someone. Ethan quickly walked across the seats, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me up. He pursed his lips and still put on an air of superiority. Withdraw the application and come home with me. I can pretend that nothing happened. Our skins touched, and what was transmitted was not only the warmth of the skin but also his barely perceptible tremble. I knocked his hand away. Defendant, please respect the plaintiff. He stared straight into my eyes and stood still on the spot. After a long while, he forced a self-mocking smile. Elodie, don't regret it. He had always been bold and decisive in the business world, but at this moment in the courtroom, he was extremely taciturn. Irene was acting as the sole agent and bombarded me with fierce interrogations. After seeing that I remained silent, as if she was sure of victory, she said emphatically, "No progress at all." When it was my turn to speak, I didn't go into details. I directly presented the evidence. The defendant had an extramarital affair during the marriage and is the party at fault. According to Article 1091 of the Civil Code, I hereby apply for an immediate divorce judgment. As soon as these words came out, the people sitting in the courtroom started discussing heatedly, and the two people at the defendant's bench also lost their composure. Ethan explained in a flustered manner, "I lived with Irene just to take care of her and the child. We didn't have a sexual relationship. This can't be regarded as evidence. I don't agree to the divorce judgment." I calmly pointed out, "The defendant has personally admitted the fact of cohabiting with others during the marriage." The gavel fell, and the divorce was granted. Walking out of the court, Irene blocked my way. Having practiced law for more than 10 years, this was probably the first time she had lost a lawsuit. She gritted her teeth and said, "You can only handle your own divorce cases. After what happened before, who in the entire legal profession in Shanghai would dare to hire you?" "I do. I dare." The voice came before the footsteps. A figure blocked in front of me. The person came with a big smile and separated me from Irene. Irene recognized Owen. In the legal profession in Shanghai, no one didn't know this man who had founded 10 law firms by himself. "Irene, first of all, I'd like to warmly congratulate you on your loss. Secondly, I've already formally extended an invitation to Elodie. Starting from tomorrow, Elodie will be my ace lawyer and partner." She asked in disbelief, "Lawyer Owen, you too?" Ethan didn't know when he had stood behind me and said gloomily, "Elodie, you don't have to pretend to get a divorce and find someone to annoy me. The case from back then is over. You just lost your job as a lawyer. It's not a big deal. Why can't you be as open-minded as Irene and look forward?" Owen was about to speak but was stopped by me. "All right, I'll be open-minded and look forward. Well, you issue a statement now to prove that you stole my materials in the migrant worker case, which led to my failure in the appeal, resulting in the plaintiff jumping into the lake and his family being ruined. As long as you're willing to issue it, I can look forward." The expressions of the two of them changed in an instant. A few months ago, under the attention of all sectors of society, out of a lawyer's sense of morality and responsibility, I took on a shocking unjust case. It was almost a certain defeat. Everyone knew that the migrant worker involved was innocent, but he was unreasonably burdened with tens of millions of compensation and decades of imprisonment. This lawsuit was also the most watched one in Shanghai in the past decade. There was no other reason. The plaintiff's lawyer was Irene, the undefeated myth in the legal profession, and the defendant's lawyer was me, who was regarded as a rising star in the legal profession. This was Irene's 100th case since she started her career. She was full of confidence and boasted that she would make me lose miserably. At that time, I had just been married to Ethan for a short while. I was taking care of both work and family. I flipped through the law code page by page, and my hair was falling out in handfuls. Finally, I found the key evidence to reverse the case. I excitedly informed the victim's family and worked with them to persuade the witnesses to appear in court. Everything was developing in a good direction. I couldn't wait to tell Ethan the good news. His hand that was looking at the financial report paused and he slowly raised his head. There was no look of joy for me in his eyes. "Elodie, stop investigating. It's tiring." I didn't understand the implication of his words. I stepped forward and took his hand. My tone was full of the tenderness of a newlywed. Honey, this is the most important case in my life. No matter how hard or tired it is, I must clear the client's name. The trial is tomorrow. You must wish me a successful victory. He didn't hesitate to stand up, shook off my hand, and didn't say a word. Early the next morning, I realized something was wrong. The key evidence was missing and the backup data had also been deleted. I was so scared that cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I couldn't figure out who could unlock my password. It was too late to call the police, so I had no choice but to bite the bullet and rush to the court. What made me even more devastated was that the witness retracted his testimony on the spot. In an instant, my mind went blank. When the judge's voice announcing the maintenance of the original judgment reached my ears, I couldn't remember how I left the courtroom under Irene's mocking gaze or how I walked out of the court facing the siege of reporters. I only remembered that when I came to my senses, the wife and daughter of the client were kneeling limply in front of me, wailing and asking me why this had happened. I fled the scene in a panic and accidentally ran into Ethan and Irene. The woman hooked the man's tie, pulled him closer, and the air was filled with ambiguity. Irene's voice was soft and charming as she whispered in Ethan's ear like a gentle breeze. Ethan, thank you for destroying the evidence for me and providing me with the witness's information. Only then could I win this case smoothly. I'll reward you well. Ethan rubbed her head and his tone was gentle. Whether she wins or loses is far less important than your perfect winning record. Looking at the affectionate couple, I couldn't help but feel physically nauseated. As far as I knew, Irene was 10 years older than us. She had been divorced early and had a child. The noise caught their attention. They both turned around and saw me with a pale face not far away. Elodie Ethan wanted to step forward to explain, but Irene held him back and gave me a thumbs-down gesture, smiling and spitting out 2 words. Loser. Ethan didn't think there was anything wrong with what he had done at all. I hysterically asked him to give me an explanation. He waved his hand casually and said in a detached and calm tone, Sister Irene has been kind to me. For you, this is just a small matter, but for her, it's the reputation of a perfect winning record. You should know which is more important. A small matter? I couldn't help but laugh. The breadwinner of a family was wrongly imprisoned. Is this a small matter? The hopes of countless workers were dashed and they were in a state of panic. Is this a small matter? In your eyes, Irene's reputation for a perfect winning record has become a big thing. Perhaps the disappointment in my eyes irritated him. He looked unhappy and explained impatiently, otherwise? I'm telling you clearly that for me, Sister Irene is much more important than others. She helped my mother get rid of her gambling husband and helped me escape from my blood-sucking father. She can't do anything wrong. Elodie, stop being a lawyer. One top female lawyer is enough. There can't be any defeats in Irene's career. I'll remove all the obstacles in her way. From now on, you can just stay at home and take care of me wholeheartedly. I'll support you. After saying that, he threw a card at me and ignoring me who was on the verge of collapse, left without looking back. I stood upstairs and looked down. Irene ran towards him from a distance and threw herself into his arms. They looked like a pair of intimate lovers. Was it really to repay a kindness? I felt empty in my heart, but I didn't have time to think about anything else. The consequences that couldn't be ignored had already occurred. All I could do now was to minimize the social impact of this incident and then make up for the client to the greatest extent possible. However, before I could figure out a way, I received a piece of news that I would never forget for the rest of my life. My client felt hopeless and jumped into the lake and committed suicide. His wife and daughter couldn't accept the blow and wanted to follow him. His daughter was luckily rescued and was being rescued in the operating room. The moment I received the news, I rushed to the hospital. There was a traffic jam on the road. I had no choice but to abandon my car and run to the hospital. I stumbled all the way. Just when I was about to reach the intersection near the hospital, a small figure suddenly rushed out and knocked me down in the middle of the road. A car screeched to a halt in front of me, only 30 centimeters away from me. The owner of the car rolled down the window and scolded angrily, "Are you blind? If it weren't for my good driving skills, you'd be dead here. I thanked him repeatedly and grabbed the little girl who pushed me. What are you doing? The little girl, seeing that she couldn't escape, rolled her eyes and simply sat on the ground and burst into loud sobs. Mistress. You're a mistress. You've taken Dad away. Woo-woo, you're a bad woman. The onlookers immediately pointed at me and criticized me. The owner of the car also spat at me, destroying other people's families. It would be better if you were dead. Fortunately, I hadn't lost my sanity yet. With a solemn expression, I directly took out my cell phone and called the police. You'll be responsible for every word you said. The little girl, seeing that I was calling the police, wailed and threw herself into the arms of a woman not far away. It was Irene. And beside her, Ethan was standing there conspicuously. In the mediation room, the three of them sat opposite me. The little girl kept provoking me. Instead of stopping her, Irene encouragingly stroked her head. She's just a child. Why are you arguing with her? Ethan's voice rang out, and I couldn't help but have my eyes turn red. Ethan, I was almost hit and killed. Well, you're not dead, are you? Irene gave me a reproachful glance and continued, why make things difficult for a child? I'll apologize to you on her behalf, and let's just let this matter pass. Anyway, the child is a minor, and there's nothing you can do to us. No need to apologize. Ethan stopped her. My eyes felt a bit sour. Looking at the man in front of me, I suddenly felt a bit strange. Once, when I accidentally got a scrape, he would carefully apply medicine for me. Now that I was lucky enough to survive, he didn't care at all. He even told me not to hold the culprit accountable. Go home, Elodie. Don't make me say it again. His cold tone made me feel as if I had fallen into an ice cellar, and I was instantly disheartened. Give me an explanation. Ethan looked up in astonishment, and then, as if he had understood something, he frowned and said, Nana and Sister Irene are orphans and widows, relying on each other. The child is still young and lacks cognitive ability. She regards me as her father. Coincidentally, I also like children, so I just went along with it. That's why she misunderstood our relationship. I'll explain it to her when she grows up. I smiled self-deprecatingly and said, Ethan, you like children, but you don't want to have a child with me, right? It was supposed to be our newlywed days, but Ethan didn't come home every night. I was shy, but I summoned up my courage and blushed to ask him to stay for one night instead of being busy with work. He was stunned for a moment and then nodded in agreement. That night, when we were in the thick of passion, a phone call rang, and he didn't hesitate to pull away and leave. Embarrassment, disappointment, and shame all intertwined. I sat on the bed alone in a daze and cried all night. Apparently, he also remembered that night and explained awkwardly, Nana had a high fever that day. I walked to the bedside, looked at the countless lights in the houses downstairs, and sneered, are you trying to say that Nana has a mother, grandparents, and family, but she just can't do without a father who has no blood relationship with her? Enough. He quickly walked up to me, straightened my body, and forced me to look up and meet his eyes. I didn't realize before that you were such a jealous person. In his pupils, I saw my own face, which was exhausted because of all the misfortunes, and all these misfortunes were brought to me by him and Irene. Suddenly, I felt that it was all so meaningless. I broke free from his restraint and left in disappointment. At the moment when my hand was about to touch the doorknob, his cold and hard voice came from behind. Don't be a lawyer anymore in the future. Just be a housewife. This is a notice, not a negotiation. Moreover, Elodie, you've already lost your qualification to be a lawyer. All your escape routes have been blocked by me. As if having some kind of premonition, I hurriedly took out my phone. With just one glance, I started trembling all over, cold sweat pouring down, and infinite fear hitting me. I felt as helpless and panicked as if I were trapped in an endless hell. I don't understand. Isn't it good for you to read books, take care of flowers every day, and attend those high society parties of socialites as Mrs. Ethan? Why do you have to show your face outside and work hard for your so-called career? What's wrong with me providing you with a comfortable life? In front of the courthouse, Ethan asked with confusion. I gave him a casual glance. Is this the reason why you and Irene hired online trolls to smear me, let the incident get out of control, got me fired by the law firm, and threatened that no law firm would dare to hire me again, making me be blocked by the whole industry? Ethan was stunned and couldn't say a word. Rewinding time. I'll never forget that day. After Ethan said those words, I opened my phone and saw a flood of abuse and blame. The first time I was on the hot search in my life was with titles like, "The female lawyer in Shanghai caused the client's family to be ruined," and "Elodie, the mistress." In the video, the little girl cried and said that I was a mistress, and the client's family members accused me of being incompetent and immoral in the hospital. The public's condemnation of me reached its peak. The law firm quickly distanced itself from the responsibility and announced my dismissal immediately, which undoubtedly further confirmed the public speculation that I was a lawyer with poor professional ability and personal conduct. My lawyer friends who were on good terms with me also sent me the notice in their group. President Ethan has ordered that any law firm that dares to hire Elodie will be regarded as an enemy of the Ethan family. No one would take the risk of offending the Ethan family to give me a helping hand at this critical moment. I was trapped on an isolated island, all alone and helpless. Ethan watched coldly as I questioned him hysterically. After a long time, he said casually and indifferently, "Elodie, if you had agreed to withdraw from the legal profession earlier and not compete with Irene, I wouldn't have gone this far." Even though I had been disappointed long ago, I still slumped to the ground. The pain in my heart spread to my bones. The successive grievances and blows made me cry like a madman. Ethan, you're my husband. Why are you treating me like this? Who asked you to insist on having a lawsuit with Sister Irene? Who asked her to be Irene? Looking at Ethan's obsessed face, I just felt that my marriage was a joke. I stopped crying and looked at Ethan steadily for a while, trying to take a last look at this man who had brought me endless harm. Then, I turned around and walked away with big steps. Each step was my determination to leave firmly. I no longer inquired about his whereabouts, no longer disturbed his life, and tried my best to play the role of a good wife. Even when Ethan went to celebrate Nana's birthday, I gave him the gift that I had already prepared. Ethan was surprised by my change and asked me hesitantly, "I'm going to find Sister Irene and Nana. Aren't you angry?" I tied his tie for him and said in an emotionless voice, "I won't stop you from doing what you want to do." He nodded and, surprisingly, took the initiative to explain to me for the first time. "I'll come back after celebrating Nana's birthday." When he came back, it was already late at night. I had gone to bed early and didn't wait for him like before. He didn't find me in the living room, so he groped his way to the master bedroom, lifted the quilt, and lay down on the bed. Feeling the coolness coming from beside me, I woke up instantly. Ethan reached out and pulled me into his arms. He had drunk some wine and still had a bit of perfume smell on him. There was no need to guess where it came from. I quietly broke free from his embrace. He clung to me again, his tone affectionate. "Elodie, let's have a baby too. Let's have a cute daughter like Nana." I pushed him away coldly. The belated intimacy made me feel disgusted. I piled the quilt high in the middle to separate myself from him. He hugged the quilt as if it were me and held it tightly all night. "Elodie, don't let the maid cook dinner tonight. I want to eat the noodles you make." The next day, he took it for granted to make the request. He even buried his head in reading the financial report and didn't even look at me. I raised my wrist and said, "I'm injured." He showed understanding. A few days later, he mentioned again that he wanted to eat noodles. I picked up my bag and walked out of the house, only leaving a sentence behind. "Qian Tai asked me to go shopping." He mentioned it several times, and I declined every time. Finally, he couldn't help but explode. He stopped me in the kitchen and asked me sharply, "You can make cakes, right? Why can't you make me a bowl of noodles?" In the end, there was a bit of grievance in his voice unconsciously. I couldn't cook, but I could make a delicious bowl of plain noodles. Ethan ate them once and said he liked them. He had a lot of social engagements and couldn't avoid drinking often. It had become my habit to make him a bowl of noodles to warm his stomach after he drank. But that day, he pushed the noodles away in disgust and shouted at me drunkenly, "Stop making them for me, okay? I'm really tired of eating them. Can't you learn from Sister Irene and be able to cook a lot of delicious dishes? You're both lawyers. Why is there such a big difference?" I silently took the lumpy noodles and ate them one by one under his scolding. Tears couldn't stop dripping into the bowl, adding a bit more saltiness to it. I didn't tell him those memories. I just smiled faintly and found a clumsy excuse to get through it again in the face of his angry face. "Since you looked down on it so much before, why bother now?" He still habitually asked me about the legal affairs of the company. I smiled and pushed the bill back to him, pointed to the legal professional qualification certificate on the bookshelf, and said, "I'm not a lawyer anymore. If you have any questions, go ask Sister Irene. I've already dialed the phone for you." A surprised female voice came from the other end of the phone, but Ethan was unusually silent. He hung up the phone and clenched his fists tightly. "I'm asking you, Elodie." I still smiled, but there was coldness in my eyes. "I haven't taken on any cases for too long. I'm a bit rusty. Sorry." He froze on the spot, looking at me with a blank look in his eyes. "So this is the reason why you suddenly decided to divorce?" Ethan grabbed my hand and asked in disbelief. "Let go." Owen protected me behind him and pointed at Ethan's nose and angrily scolded, "Every decision Elodie makes is not on a whim. She must have planned to divorce you long ago." "Yes." I nodded and said, "Ethan, it wasn't yesterday, nor the day before yesterday. In fact, from the moment I knew you stole my materials, I had decided to divorce you." He swayed a little and managed to stand firm with Irene's support. It wasn't that he didn't notice the clues, but he was too confident, certain that I couldn't leave him, so he automatically put a reasonable coat on those details that indicated I was about to leave. I hadn't chosen a suit for him for a long time. After each case was over, I would definitely apply for a day off and go to choose a suit for Ethan. He was busy with work. Before marriage, his life assistant took care of everything for him. Naturally, after marriage, I took over this responsibility. By the time he realized it, he hadn't changed into a new suit for several days. "Elodie, you're not busy now. When shall we go shopping together?" he hinted. When I was most longing for love, I had fantasized countless times about going shopping and going to the supermarket hand in hand with the person I liked in the future. But all these fantasies were shattered after I married Ethan. He didn't have time to accompany me to do these little things, but he had plenty of time to accompany Irene and her daughter. I didn't reply, and he added, "How about this Saturday?" I gave an irrelevant answer, "Find a new life assistant." Sensing the implication of my words, he suppressed his anger and said to me in as gentle a tone as possible, "Elodie, let's talk." He poured out all his dissatisfaction in his heart without reservation, as if he were counting my faults one by one. "You're not working now, but you can't take care of me wholeheartedly, Elodie. Tell me, what are you busy with? Are you trying to attract my attention by keeping me at a distance? I know you have resentment towards me, but we're husband and wife. I won't harm you. You'd better put away your thoughts of cold violence as soon as possible. It's just like what a childish little girl would do. It's really boring." He became more and more excited as he spoke, while I just looked at him quietly without saying a word. "Say something, Elodie. Silence won't solve the problem." Our eyes met. I hadn't looked directly into his eyes for a long time. "Then I'll say it, Ethan. Let's get divorced." He looked extremely angry, but still took my words as a joke. "Are you kidding? Don't I give you enough money to spend?" "Elodie, enough is enough." I really did stop there and didn't mention divorce again. I saw him secretly heave a sigh of relief. Days passed uneventfully like this until that stormy night when the calm was broken. Ethan rushed back home angrily but couldn't find me anywhere. He kicked over the trash can in a fit of rage, with all his anger having nowhere to vent because I had sent him an application for divorce litigation. "Mrs. Wu, where's the madam?" The nanny stepped forward and told him that I had just packed my luggage and left. Before leaving, I had cooked a bowl of noodles for him, and that bowl of noodles was on the dining table at the moment. He dialed my number in disbelief. I answered the call, and his voice was urgent, as if he had lost some precious treasure. If I hadn't experienced it myself, I would almost have been deceived by his anxiety. "Elodie, where are you?" I interrupted him. "Ethan, the court session will be held soon. I'm looking forward to you appointing Irene as your lawyer." After saying that, I hung up the phone and dragged that familiar number into the blacklist. Ethan searched upstairs and downstairs and found that there was no trace of me left in this house. Even the wedding ring and the card he gave me were neatly placed at home by me. He had to admit that I had left completely. He walked to the dining room in a daze. The noodles had already gone cold. He swallowed them mechanically. Instead of feeling satisfied by the long-lost delicious taste, he felt extremely uncomfortable. "Elodie will definitely come back. She just wants to attract my attention. It must be like this." Ethan thought so, but this thought was instantly shattered when Elodie appeared in court. It was only when the judge announced the divorce that he truly realized that Elodie was going to leave him. A sense of inexplicable panic swept over him and his heart trembled. I walked out from behind Owen and stood in front of the two of them. "Irene, what an easy divorce case. How could you lose it? You." I turned to look at Ethan with a gentle tone. "Do you want to know why I proposed divorce on that day? It's because after you ruined my job, I had been sending out resumes all the time. And on that day, with the introduction of my university teacher, I joined the Owen family and became a lawyer again. I think I had the confidence to leave completely. I urgently needed a case to practice on. Coincidentally, there was a ready-made divorce case right in front of me. What made me even happier was that you really had Irene come, and she lost the case. Neither of you let me down. Elodie, you just won by chance. Stop pretending." Irene's sharp voice rang out. She was about to step forward and slap me, but Ethan surprisingly stopped her. "Irene, don't worry. How could I let you off? From now on, I'll accompany you in every case you take on," I said with a smile and turned around to leave with Owen. Irene angrily complained to Ethan, "Ethan, look at her. Fortunately, you two got divorced. Otherwise..." Her words got stuck in her throat because she saw that Ethan's eyes had been closely following Elodie's back and wouldn't leave for a long time. Ethan missed the bowl of noodles made by Elodie terribly. He got drunk again. He asked his assistant to buy all the Yangchun noodles in the city. Many bowls of noodles were piled on the table. The taste was surprisingly similar, but none of them warmed his stomach and heart like the ones made by Elodie. He thought Elodie was busy with cases, going out early and coming back late every day. How could she still have time to take meticulous care of him? There was a photo of Elodie on the desk in the study. At that time, they were deeply in love. Elodie took out her legal practice qualification certificate from behind and stretched it out in front of him with a smile. "Here, please call me Lawyer Elodie from now on." He wasn't good at smiling but still encouragingly touched Elodie's head and called out, "Lawyer Elodie." For no reason, he felt annoyed. He swept all the things on the desk into the trash can in one go, including that photo. Looking at the empty desk, after pondering for a moment, he slowly picked up the photo from the trash can, kept wiping it with his hands again and again, and then pressed it close to his heart, murmuring to himself, "Did I do something wrong?" That night, he watched the video of Elodie's court trial that was publicly available online over and over again. The woman was so impressive, never saying a word of nonsense, always hitting the nail on the head every time, directly hitting the core of the opponent, and being invincible. He began to doubt that if he hadn't stolen Elodie's materials and hadn't leaked Elodie's witnesses, would Elodie still have defeated Irene so thoroughly? When he saw her that day, she had lost all her pride and confidence. Her eyes were dull. When facing the reporter's questions, she was in a daze, as if she had lost her soul. He had never seen her like that. She stood there, looking all gray, forming a sharp contrast with the high-spirited Irene. Now that he thought about it, Ethan's heart seemed to be pinched by a pair of big hands. The sour feeling spread, and he felt a bit regretful and also a bit heartbroken for Elodie. After watching like this all night, he went to the company with dark circles under his eyes. His secretary reported that the legal department's negligence had caused the company to face lawsuits and huge compensation. Such a simple mistake could even be seen by an outsider like him. He angrily questioned, how could such a thing be sent out? The secretary said carefully. Irene agreed. You said she could have full authority. At a loss for words for a moment, he held his forehead. If Elodie were here, she would definitely have found the problem among this and helped him avoid a lot of unnecessary losses. He thought of Elodie again. At this time, Nana rushed into his arms. He was pushed back 2 steps by the impact. Only then did Ethan realize that a 12-year-old child could have such great strength. When Elodie was pushed into the middle of the road before, he thought she was exaggerating her performance. Now that he thought about it, if the driver hadn't braked in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. He felt a bit scared after thinking about it and quickly pulled Nana out of his arms. The girl blinked innocently and said coquettishly, Dad, you haven't come to see me and Mom for a long time. Didn't you divorce that bitch? When will you marry my mom? Hearing this, Ethan couldn't help frowning. Bitch? Who are you talking about? Who taught you to say such things? How could you say that? Nana still didn't care and tried to burrow into his arms. It's that bitch named Elodie. I'm so regretful that I didn't push her farther. Then she would definitely have been hit and killed by that truck, and our family of 3 could be happily together. By the way, Dad, I want to buy a doll. Looking at the little girl in front of him, Ethan felt a sense of panic in his heart. The child he had always held in his palm could be so vicious, and all of this must have something to do with the adult's influence. Just as he was thinking, Irene walked over swaying her hips. Ethan, this matter is quite serious this time. You may need to appear in court. But don't worry. With me handling it, is there any case that I can't win? Ethan looked at the woman and the child in front of him, with a complicated feeling in his heart and remained silent for a long time. He really had done something wrong. He had never thought that the next time he saw that face he had been longing for day and night would be in the courtroom. Elodie was wearing a professional suit, nodded and smiled at him, and then quickly withdrew her gaze, as if they were just strangers. He stared at Elodie foolishly. She was the lawyer Elodie who originally belonged to him and whom he had always been thinking about. I had known long ago that I would face Irene and Ethan today. After all, it was I who discovered their loopholes. Irene obviously didn't expect it would be me. She was so angry that she lost all her grace as a lawyer. Irene, long time no see. I'll give you a gift after the court session. She snorted coldly and avoided shaking hands with me. Who cares? Ethan showed up at an inappropriate time. His voice was hoarse as he asked me, Elodie, are you okay? I hadn't seen him for a few days. He looked a bit sloppy and was still wearing the suit that I had bought for him a long time ago. Compared with his previous complacent look, he really looked a bit weather-beaten now. I smiled and nodded, I'm doing fine. How about President Ethan? Not good? He said eagerly. Elodie, I'm not doing well at all. You? I stretched out my index finger and made a shush gesture, interrupting his unspoken words. But what does that have to do with me? This lawsuit went extremely smoothly because Ethan, for some reason, asked to terminate the court session and admitted the compensation. He had been staring at me closely when he said that. Irene's face immediately fell, but she couldn't stop Ethan and could only accept the defeat. When it was over, she quickly caught up with me, grabbed my sleeve and said hatefully, Elodie, don't be complacent. Irene, anyway, the only 2 times you lost were both because of me. I'm quite satisfied. By the way, I said, looking at her face that was turning blue with anger, I said I'd give you a gift. Check your phone. She took out her phone suspiciously, took a few steps back in shock, and then collapsed to the ground. Of course she was panicked because the news that Ethan had stolen my materials and that she had bribed my witnesses was on the news. For her, who cared a lot about her reputation, this was a huge blow. You? How could you have the evidence? As for why I have this video, you can ask the person who brought it. Ethan came chasing after me, panting. His eyes didn't spare a glance for Irene but were firmly fixed on me. Ethan. Irene's eyes were filled with disbelief, and she screamed like a madwoman, "No, it can't be Ethan." I crouched down and lifted her chin. Irene, this conclusive evidence was given to me by Ethan. How about I pass it on to you? Well, how does it feel to be scolded like this? I had thought that without evidence, I could only swallow my anger and endure it in silence. However, unexpectedly, Ethan took the initiative to hand over the surveillance video to me, claiming that he wanted to meet me. There was a note attached to the video, in his handwriting: "Sorry, Elodie. I want to start over with you." I asked someone to reply to him, "I'll accept the thing, but there's no need for us to meet." At this moment, he said eagerly, "Elodie, I've avenged you. As long as you're willing to come back, I can also blacklist Irene. I only wanted to repay her kindness. I've always loved only you." The more he said, the more disgusted I felt. I said coldly, "Blacklist her like you did to me? Ethan, don't overrate yourself." The scandal about Irene caused a much bigger stir than what happened to me back then. She was an internet celebrity in the legal profession and had the reputation of being an undefeated goddess. Once this incident came to light, many people reported her previous bad behaviors under their real names, and she was completely unable to turn the situation around. She and Nana went to find Ethan, but he turned them away. Nana was ashamed of her mother and ran away from home. Irene couldn't accept that she had fallen to the bottom and had a mental breakdown for a while. I showed the news to the daughter of the client who was in the hospital bed. Tears glistened in her eyes. "Lawyer Elodie, thank you." I also quietly wiped away my tears and left some money when she fell asleep. Ethan was waiting at the entrance of the hospital. As soon as I walked out, he came up to me. The incident of stealing the materials also hit his company hard. He looked like he hadn't slept for many days, with huge dark circles under his eyes and without any grace. "Elodie, have you thought it over? Could you give me a chance to pursue you again?" "Impossible." My voice rang out at the same time as another male voice, both rejecting Ethan. Owen walked over with big strides. "Mr. Ethan, Miss Elodie is currently considering my pursuit. You may have to wait in line." Ethan looked at me and Owen standing side by side in astonishment, and his eyes turned red in an instant. "Sorry. Elodie. I'm sorry," he muttered to himself, with his head hanging down and tears streaming down his face. That day, people were coming and going in front of the hospital. Everyone saw a man kneeling on the ground, murmuring over and over again, "I've lost my great lawyer Elodie." I could hardly remember Ethan anymore. He showed up at the wedding scene of me and Owen. In recent years, his company had been in a slump and had declared bankruptcy several times. He looked extremely down and out, like a beggar. He stood silently in the distance, watching my happiness without saying a word. I asked someone to hand him a glass of wedding wine, the kind he used to love drinking the most. It tasted bitter, but the aftertaste was unusually wonderful. However, when he tasted it again, there was only bitterness left between his lips and teeth. But for me and Owen, this glass of wine was filled with endless sweetness. I looked at Owen, who was looking deeply at me in front of me, and nodded solemnly. "Lawyer Owen, with the law as my witness, I do." The end.